Okay, we're starting off on this show. It's called No Rules for Design. We'll explain that a little bit later as we go. Explain our album cover that Judith, myself, and Justin Kavoussi designed, and Keith Carter had a big play on the artwork on this album cover. But first, I want to show you an album cover, and it'll relate to what we're talking about. Joan Jett and the Blackhearts album. The image was given to us by Meryl Laguna for the front cover, and Judith and I had the idea of putting a clear sticker on it because the photograph was so strong. And literally, it says what's in the album, rock and roll. This is not a Joni Mitchell album, you can tell. So this play of the concept on the front cover will lead us into our cover that we just designed for Keith Cook's album called Rock and Roll Riot, released by Riot Records in Australia. And this is the front cover. It started off to be a picture that I saw with a head with headphones on, literally. And that was it. And then Judith and I decided to pick Keith Carter to do the artwork. And we wanted a strong image for the front cover, whether it was photograph or some sort of artwork, but we felt Keith would be perfect for this. And then we went along thinking about changing the photograph into a more striking picture, which Keith helped us do. And so this is what the front cover looks like. And as the Joan Jett cover, we put on a sticker on it because we thought the artwork was so strong. And that sticker was ripped off the shrink wrap, and then you're left with this image. So going into the illustration, there were little subtleties done, which Keith and Judith could talk to you about that. For instance, the hair, right, Judith? We wanted the hair kind of like originally it was a smooth haircut, and then we wanted to freak out the hair, so it's kind of spiked up.
Well, because to give it like electricity.
Yeah. And Keith, tell us about that.
Well, when you sent the image to me, I mean I got the idea that this music was this supposed to just blow you away, and of course they sent me the music as well to listen to, and yeah, I mean, his sound was like punk rock meets insanity, so it was like something that really would just put the headphones on and just shock you or whatever. And I was kind of doing an homage to a few underground artists or alternative artists. Charles Burns is one of the artists. Another guy is Mitch O'Connell and Daniel Clowes. People may know him from the movie Ghost World. He wrote the script for that. Yeah. And I really like their styles because their styles are commercial, but they're not like superhero Marvel / commercial, but they're kind of a underground commercial appeal to them. And so I wanted to do something that reminded me of alternative comics like Love and Rockets and 8 Ball and all that. And so that was the look I was going for when I did this.
Yeah, and on the back cover, which follows along that Keith did, is this is a hand that it's sort of like the kids do it in rock and roll concerts. They use this hand signal, what we call rock and roll hand signal. So that was the back cover, very minimal, just a barcode with the legal line almost not even there on the bottom. We wanted to keep these artwork as strong as possible and not infringe in it. So the front and back cover is sort of like really wild, and you notice there's a very heavy play with green, black, and white. This goes through the whole cover, green, black, and white. And so the next step was getting a one sheet, which was the idea of Keith Cook and us. Keith Cook wanted to have what they call a one sheet in the album. And so this is where Justin, Judith, and myself came into play. And Justin had a big part in this, designing it. So we had the pictures, credits, so forth on one side, and the other side was a la poster type image you could take off and put on the wall type of concept. But what's interesting, on the one sheet is that instead of side one and side two, we did something, and this is we get into no rules for design. Instead of doing side one, side two, we thought of doing the picture of the record label of each side to be cohesive with the song stack of that side. I've never seen that on an album cover design at all. The pictures were different musicians on the album, and Justin did a great job of doing it the right way. And the typography, we picked a typeface, very raw typeface. I think we picked one of Carlos Segura's T26 typewriter faces, and so that's a story of the one sheet. And on the record label, Keith did an amazing thing. He did it not in color; he did it in black and white. So the record, what we picked was a neon green record, and on each side is the image that's on like the front and back of the album cover. And that's basically it with no type on it. So it was a very minimal type structure. Now, things like this, for instance, not putting type on the record label is a big thing with a record company. I mean, and this record company, thanks to Keith Cook and the record company, they let us go on our design all the way, literally. So that was very important. And I think that about, so any input on this? Justin, you had a big part on the one sheet with Mom and me.
We put it all together. I mean, we worked as a trio on pretty much the whole thing. So yeah, the one sheet, we had kind of all the elements, and we were, I feel like a lot of it was me refereeing between the two of you guys, and Mom would say, Mom would have some ideas, and Spencer would be like, no, don't do that. And I'd be like, let's try it out. And we try it out. And he's like, oh, actually, that's pretty good. Or Spencer would have an idea, and Mom would say, I don't know if that's going to work. And we try it out. And he's like, oh, maybe. And you guys would kind of riff back and forth. And so a lot of it was just me like, all right, everyone, we're going to make this work. It's going to be good. So, but I think it shows. It turned out. But yeah, to me, you guys are just so experienced. You have this whole career. So someone who also works in creative fields, I do more digital video stuff and editing and motion graphics. But to be able to work with people who are so experienced and kind of see their creative process, I was kind of, even though I've grown up around you guys, to actually be there working with you and get the, experience in that hands-on that process was to me, and I was like, it's like a treat. It's like a privilege. It's like I get taken a class in school of seeing these people, how they work, how their minds are going.
We could have used you on many of the past projects, Justin.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Bon Jovi for one.
Yeah.
I might have been a little too young back then.
No, you were a little too much too young.
Yeah.
3 years old. But I wanted to say that, I wanted to ask Keith, tell us about the green and the choice for the green.
So way back when I was working at USA Today, they were really streamlining their graphics and simplifying so we would focus on the information. And so one of the things they started implementing is they wanted to use only one color in the artwork to draw your eye either to the information, to a part of the illustration. And so that came in part of my my animation work as well. So I started just focus on black and white, gray tones, and one color. So I've been doing this for quite a while. So when I get an assignment, I'm now just, when I see color everywhere, it just seems blinding because I'm like, where's the focal point? So now everything I do is always gray tones, black and whites, and one color. So when the album came, that was my first time to use it in an album. And I thought, well, it really does something to draw your eye, because in a record store, and I can't tell you the album, I want to say it was something, it may have been like the soundtrack to Repo Man, and it was reprinted, and something about that I don't know, that toxic green on black almost made it like it was glowing in the dark. And I thought, if I ever have a chance to use that, I'm going to do it. And of course, I never get any kind of assignments that allows me to use that hot pink like the Ramones or that green from the Toxic Avenger. But this album came along, I thought, why not use it here? And it really does give it that thing, like it, potentially if that green was hot enough, it would look like it's a glow in the dark album. Matter of fact, it made me think, gosh, can we make a glow in the dark album?
Yeah, and also, you know, it's interesting that the background of the cover, the design in the background really points up the head. You know, that you got these sharp things going on, points. You know, Keith, and the background design, it really points up the head and the freak out thing going on the front cover. I like that too. And the glow in the back cover of the hand, that neon glow, which carries through, actually works with the album color of the record that we picked, the neon green record.
I wanted to add to Keith's what you're saying about the simplicity of using one color. I think that we actually, I don't even think we purposely did that. We just sort of happened. We continued with that simplicity with this, and by breaking some of the rules, which we did with the record label. You know how we just put images on there, and then the images, you know, if you wanted to know what songs were playing on that particular side, you just went to the picture.
Judith, I brought this idea up to Keith. You know, Keith had to convey this to the record label, and he says, wow, the record label has to okay it.
Right.
Now, what's fortunate was the record label let us do whatever we wanted on this as we went through it. So I said, wow, this is really cool. I mean, you really got to have the complicity of the artist with the record label to have you do the total freedom of your graphics or artwork, you know, and they did that, which made this album really the best it could be. I really mean it. And by the way, the album will be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame archival collection and is already entered in the Making Vinyl show 2021 show now, package award entry. So it's got a lot of, I'm probably entered in some other things I'll probably enter it in. I think it really is an incredible package. And Keith, you had a lot to do with it, with all of us. And it just was it's like when I worked on Fear of Music, the elements all worked in to make it a great album cover. And, you know, it was nominated for a Grammy. This is the same thing. All the elements that we had were all good. Keith did his job. That artwork became amazing. All of us with the one sheet and the record, even the record, what was going on in it and how it was being produced with a neon green record, all the elements were really good to make this thing happen. And you got to have that as a designer to evolve into a very nice design piece, you might call it, or whatever.
I have heard the critics say they compare it to The Weasels Rip My Flesh by the Mothers of Invention.
Yeah, that's a great album cover. One of my favorite album covers, Judith, is that album cover.
Oh, God.
That's a great piece of artwork. Right? Justin, you've seen that. And Pat, you know that cover. Patrick.
Spencer had mentioned early on when he was cluing me in on this album cover before I had seen the work you guys were doing. And he said, you know, the cover image of an album should give the person who's seeing it the feeling that they're going to get when they listen to the album, right? It should communicate to them so they know what they're getting into. So I wanted to ask all of you, but maybe starting with Keith with the illustration, you know, how did you get that emotion? You know, were you building in emotions you experienced when you heard the music into the illustration, or did you start the other way around?
Well, no, like I said, Spencer sent an image to me. It was like a little, I don't know, clip art, vector-based type illustration. And I kind of, okay, I see what you're doing. Something's coming, these headphones, it's messing with this guy. But until I actually, and he sent me clips of the album. And when I heard the music, it immediately just sounded, like I said, punk rock meets insanity. So I said, oh, now I get it. This dude with his ear melting off the clip art means the music's just totally just physically just messing with him. So I, you know, kind of took a lot of my cues from being a, you know, comic book illustrator / comic book fan. And, you know, it's like thinking about when the Spider-Man throws his punch and you get the feeling of the punch, you know, those action lines add that feeling when it hits the bad guy. And I thought he's got to have something that really reflects what he's feeling, and almost like the Spidey sense something's going on,
Yeah.
like, you know, and he's reacting to it. So it was a combination of seeing the clip art and listening to the sound. I only listened to a couple of songs. I was like, this may not necessarily be the direction I would go with my music, but I can see this would have its audience would be very strong.
Yeah, you definitely had the home run on this, Keith. You definitely hit the home run on this, you know.
Well, I would put it up there with, matter of fact, when this came out, Spencer sent me a copy. And so I'm a little collector of records. So I put all my records out that are my favorite covers, and I slipped mine or ours in amongst them. And I said, you know what? This is as strong as anything that's out there.
Yeah.
It's my first one I've ever done, but I put it with, is anything on the market. There's nothing that's going to surpass it. But at the same time, we're not saying that we're better than anybody, but we can stand with the best on the industry.
Touche.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'm so glad that Justin was in the family here. I think it was good. It was the first time that Justin had worked on an album cover, and what really hit me was he really had this whole sense. I knew he had the sense before because I know what he's done before, but putting the quality of the cover together is very important. Not everybody can put a quality. I emphasize the word quality, graphics or artwork together on an album cover, and Justin had that expertise in that area, and so it really reinforced the fact that he was working with us. Also reinforced the idea that he'll be working on more projects with us because he has that sense, you know.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
So Justin, describe the mediation process. How did you see, let's say, the ideas evolve over the course of this design, and was your sort of mediation process were you also saying, you know what, I can see where they're going, but you're going to add your own input to that, and
right.
You know, become now part of the creative team rather than just, you know, a mediator?
I mean, I feel Spencer sent me that same image that he sent Keith. So early on, I saw what they were going for, and then when I saw Keith's image, I was like, this is perfect. This is amazing. This will be amazing artwork for the cover. And, you know, Spencer was telling me the whole plan for it. And then when we actually sat down and we're working on it, you know, I'd listened to the music, I'd seen all the artwork, and then it's like, all right, here's all the components, here's the plan of how we're putting them together. And I guess I'm used to being I've been around my mom and Spencer as they're working, and they can have a somewhat contentious relationship. They can be kind of pretty intense with each other, like, that's never going to work, like, what are you thinking? And so if anything, I feel like that I was able to keep it a little calmer than usual. Like, all right, guys, like, we can work this out. We're going to try everyone's idea and we'll see what works. And I think my own sensibilities, I guess I'm kind of like meticulous, and I like to be super detail oriented. So I have all this stuff in the back of my head of, like, you know, listen to the music, seeing all the artwork, or putting it together, and they're giving their ideas of how to lay things out, and we're trying things out. That's not quite working. What if we lay out the images this way? And then, you know, it was a very kind of like organic back and forth thing where they would be given these ideas that were, you know, kind of in the early phase of like how we approach it this way, and then I would just be like, you know, that seems like that could work. And let's play with it a little bit. And I feel like it's like kind of mediator, therapist, kind of creative instigator was my role there, of just letting all the ideas kind of get their chance in the sun and to flourish. And I think that worked out pretty good.
And Justin, by the way, was he did an amazing job with the one sheet, because we were given a bunch of photographs of the musicians on the album, and they're not the best quality and not the greatest photographs, and
lower resolution.
Yeah, and Justin did this, had this amazing idea to put it, because it just wasn't working for us just to lay miniature photographs of the musicians on a sheet. And Justin had the amazing idea of framing them in some very, rough frame.
Right.
Worked beautifully, Then, now we got something here. Now it kind of matches you know, the front cut. We wanted to be rough looking. You know, there was
Right,
that
right.
attempt at, you know, that music. When I heard that music, I was like, oh my God, this is like mind blowing, you know, sort of end of the world.
And you know, I want to put an input here. Judith picked out the typeface for Keith Cook Rock and Roll Riot, which is on the sticker and the one sheet. And it's a really great typeface. It has thicks and thins in it, and it has kind of like a la typewriter look, but different, more contemporary. But it's perfect for this album, you know. Yeah, and what she's talking about, what Judith is talking about, the rough look. So through the album design, we wanted to keep that format of the rough look, right? And that was very important because of the sound of the album. That's what the sound's all about, as Keith mentioned before, and Judith just mentioned, and you know, just wanted to keep this together. So that was a big thing. The typography on the one sheet's really nice. The mix of it, you know, that had a big play too. And so anyway, we feel very proud of this album. We hadn't done, Judith and I had not designed a really, I don't know what you call it. We were doing a couple of CDs before for over the years, but this was dynamic. This really brought us into the world of work that we should be doing. And I'm so glad after all these years, we finally came up with, you know, this is what record companies go. They said, what have you done for me lately? Well, now we have something to show, you know, in the contemporary world, which is I feel very good about. I feel very good for all of us.
Spencer, Judith, and Justin returned with a powerful punch, and Keith, of course. Keith, having Keith on that team, you know, made all the difference.
Yeah, I think that all of us were in the family. By the way, Keith did the book cover for our Creating Comics book on Rockport Publishing, and he did a wonderful job on the front and back cover. What's really interesting on the front and back cover, the book cover, which has a little bit of play here, is on the front cover, it's all color, right, Keith? And in the back cover, it's black and white art. I really love the back cover, too, by the way. The black and white art they did. And that relates to this cover in a way, because there's black and white involved here. And you have a strong thing for that, you know what I mean, in your artwork. So it all played together, you know.
Well, you know, a lot of the comic books that I look at today, they rely so heavily on digital color, and I think a lot of the line work gets lost because of that. So I gravitate to like the old school guys that if the art that's can't stand strong when it's a black and white, then the color is not necessarily going to make it any better. So I always focus on making sure that the black and white can stand alone without any color at all. But that's old school. That's what the old school guys do back, you know, the old Marvel guys from the 60s and so forth. Their art was kicking when it was just black and white. Matter of fact, I wish I learned to see a lot of stuff published black and white as opposed to color.
I also like the fact that, Keith, you mentioned, you know, using one color because, you know, being a graphic designer coming from that place, you know, you just always want to see some color in anything, you know, you're looking at least for myself, subjectively speaking. I want to see a color, but I like the idea of just one color with black and white because it has such a power. Your eyes just immediately, it's almost like that one color with the black and white, it's like, almost like a magnet for your eyes. Your eyes just, boom, right away, they go right to it.
It's true. That's what draws your eyes. It's really, you control where the eye is going to go. And plus, it really makes you look very sophisticated, even if you don't know what you're doing. It's like, wow, one color. What are they doing? Yeah. It makes it like, what are these guys all about? Matter of fact, I did this project for this Japanese publisher, and there was a bunch of wonderful artists on this, no questions. But I was the only person that did black and white in one color. And because of that, when they put our art up, mine immediately stands out because everybody's in color. And there was a one dude who did black and white in one color, so mine even pops because of that.
I also want to bring in something we didn't talk about, but the idea of the front of what the cover was going to look like. You know, you play either two ways. You're either going with photography or you're going with artwork. And for some reason, this album, for myself, didn't say photograph. and for some reason, with the way this it played out, was crazy artwork. I mean, the album is absolutely nuts. I mean, you've got an artist here, Keith Cook, who's very off the wall as an artist, and so to relate to that, I saw artwork. You know, some sort was going to play in this thing. And then all of a sudden, this image appeared with a little guy with the headphones. And I said, "Oh my God, Keith Carter." We both, Judith and I, said Keith Carter. So it's like some things like that are very subtle, but then you kind of know what you're going towards, either a photograph or artwork. You know what I mean? And evolving the cover from the very beginning. You know, I mean, Peter Gabriel's "So" album, if you remember that cover, he produced a number of album covers without the type on it. So, and it's an incredible photograph of him in black and white, by the way, just black and white. So things like that happen. You know, it's according to what the feel is of what you're working on and where it's going to go. You know, so that came immediately to me. You know, and Judith, and both of us agreed to that. So, you know.
So how did you end up calling me? Because it's been several years since I've talked with you, and as far as picking an artist, I'm sure there's other artists in your area that you could choose from. How did you guys end up choosing me?
So did you. I mean, that was the obvious thing. I said, well, let's see where you play in this thing, how you feel about it. So, I mean, for you, it was the first album cover. For us, it was an album cover that was done that was, you know, we hadn't done an album cover, but we felt this, for some reason in our head, the music, something said, let's do this. And it just happened to work the best it could ever be, by the way. So intuitively, these things just come along. You can't explain it. But the reason we picked you is because your expertise. I mean, there's no question about it. You know, when that I had a gut feeling that you would do a good job on this, and you did. So there's no problem.
Keith, it was Spencer who brought you, mentioned your name and as a possibility. And once we had you on board, it was like a no-brainer. You know, that's definitely. But you could thank Spencer for bringing you on board.
Well, thank Judith too, because she had to agree with me. Listen, I don't do anything without Judith's approval.
Well, I agreed that once I saw, all the things that you were capable of doing, and I thought, this is not a problem. This is good. No problem whatsoever. This is it.
Yeah.
So and sometimes these things, like Spencer said, it's intuitive. You can't explain why. You just have a feeling that this is just the right thing. Or it's the right image. It's the right artist. After so many years of working on designing all sorts of things in the world of music, I guess maybe we just have this ability to this, sixth sense of knowing certain things. Unexplainable.
Yeah, when I saw the picture with the original, going back to way back when, the original picture that we sent to Keith and Justin saw, it was like it said to us, Keith Carter. I mean, you know what I mean? It said no problem with Keith Carter. It's like, you know what I mean? You kind of know after a while of experience that Judith and I have in the world that you know what's going to be the best for what is given to you. And that we felt that it's just that easy, Keith. It's just that simple.
Well, usually I have.
Let me just say this about Justin. He's just like born into it, because when I was, I'll tell you the story, I was 8 months, 9 months, no, maybe 8 or 9 months pregnant. If you recall, Spencer,
I was
pregnant with Justin. We went to a Joan Jett concert. And I don't want to say anything about Keith Cook, but it was pretty loud. It was loud and rocking.
Right.
There I was. I wasn't even sitting, because nobody was sitting. Everybody was standing.
Standing in front of the stage.
And I was standing with Justin. And so, Justin, you heard that Joan Jett concert.
But we're very happy to have Justin in our design life now, and more coming on, I'm sure. More coming on, I'm sure.
My question is, having the real estate to work on an LP, a vinyl design. So this then included the cover, all that space on the cover, the one sheet, and the record and the labels. So how great was that to have all of those elements to work with and be designing vinyl rather than a thumbnail for a MP3 or a CD case?
For me, let me start first, and then Judith and Judith. Yeah, for me, it was like amazing to get back into the vinyl fold, you might call it, the 12-inch fold. And of course, we've done 12-inch and 45s before. But it was a big thing. That you're right. That's Patrick. That's a big play. Getting back into the big visual area, and also, if you notice, this is very important. This is a first album without the artist's picture on the front cover. Remember that. This is another thing we haven't brought up. This is a first album by an artist. And you think the record label will want the artist's picture on the front cover, or at least the back cover, but they didn't. They agreed to what we did, and I think that's a very big point. Is usually the first album is always a picture of the artist. They want that, but we decided no, that's not it. And Keith Cook agreed to that. He said, just put my picture on the inside. You know what I mean? He really agreed to that. He had to. And so that's a big point also about the first album with anybody. You'll notice that always happens. They want a picture on the front cover for identity. But this artist didn't want that. And I think that's really great. You know what I mean? He just went along with this insanity of the design and the artwork that we did. The vinyl's in, so we're glad to have it entered in the Making Vinyl event. And Judith, do you have anything to say on that?
Just felt like the old days. So it was just wanted, the old days of designing 12-inch keys. Only we had an added designer on our team.
Right.
But it was great. It was just, I wish, we could do more. I'd love to do more.
You guys have done some cool CD designs, I feel, too, that I've seen. I'm trying to think of specific ones, but are there, I feel like with CDs, you prefer doing more of like a special packaging thing, not a straight CD thing. Right? Is that right?
Well, we did CDs regular, just, but we also did special packaging with the Lou Reed metal box and the peel-off banana for the Velvet Underground. That stuff. That was the high point. So people said, "Well, we didn't do 12-inch. How do you feel about going down to CDs?" So wait a minute. We did special packaging for limited edition CDs like Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground just described, and they used phenomenal materials like a metal box for Lou Reed we designed with, and also for the Velvet we had peel off banana ideas, and Dayglow disc, a Dayglow disc. They let us go crazy with limited edition. That was the area of CD that if you didn't do 12-inch, you wanted to do a limited edition CD special, what they call a special. Judith and I did a very big show at the One Club in the 90s on special packaging. We had display cases. We picked 150 of the best pieces ever done in special, just a special limited edition. It was a mind-blowing show. I was interviewed in Smithsonian Magazine. We're on MTV. I mean, it was a very big thing that Judith and I saw that area. That was the area of CD to get into. Otherwise, it's just junk. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we worked on CDs, but they were never as I don't think you had the tools to work like it could do. In fact, I'll tell you the story. On this album, Keith Cook asked me and Judith to design a CD. Now, they didn't have board. So if you want to know, board is the way to go with CDs because you can do the graphics all the way through in a continuity form. And, plastic, forget about it. You got a tray card, you got separate pieces. You can't do a design. It's ridiculous. So we turned it down. This is the first time we turned down something. And why we turned it down? It's a plastic CD. It's going to fall apart. And we just didn't see the design area being, exciting for us. I mean, we just came off a 12-inch vinyl. How can you compare to that, right, Justin? You got to go board. If you're going to do CD, you go board with multi-panels, things like that. Judith and I was written in an article in Smithsonian in '96 about that when they were covered our CD show. The fact that so many art directors do not like plastic at all, even though they have to do it in the record company, because it's just they fall apart. They really fall apart. And graphically, there's such a restriction. You can't do the really good stuff. So unless limited edition that we did, that we were very honored to just have that in our life. I mean, that's a big thing, you know. But that's a good point too. I mean, you got to do board. If you're gonna do CD, do board, and that's permanent. You know, hands on. You know.
What was your original question again, Patrick?
So it was about having the essentially the real estate, the footage of a 12-inch cover, and you know, to that point. So as an illustration, it's not like you did you know, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. You have one image in that black space that pops and is as, you know, detailed, huge, and complex as any number of images. So what was the process when you were constructing that image and building it up to say, you know what, this is really going to fill this space and pop out to the viewer's eye?
You know, when I got the actual physical album, because you know, when you're designing on the computer, you know, you depending on how big your space is on your computer, you don't really have a sense of the size, even if you got it scaled to a size. When this thing actually came back and I saw, man, that thing is huge. I thought if we actually drew the entire body, it would be as tall as me. That's how big the head was on this. So it really, it really had an impression when I first saw it. But to get back to your question about, you know, working on that size real estate, you know, I think if I was younger, like in my 20s and getting this assignment, I think there would have been, there's something about a more joy when you're younger. When I'm older, like now I'm almost 60, I get a job. My first thought is, how much work is it going to be? How much money is involved? How much time is involved? There's all these practical sides to everything. And then it's like, if it's too much involved, it's like, gosh, that sounds like a lot of work. So I'm thinking about the job more than, you know, what potentially the art is. But as a younger man, I got so excited about, oh man, just to get to do this. But it's kind of lost some of its luster, not so much of this project, but most of my projects I do now, you know, when it gets down to it, that's my job. And so I see everything now in terms of work, how much work is going to take me to do all those lines. Can I afford to do that, you know, and still can make it come off strong? So I always look at those practical sides to it. But the end of the day, though, I always want whatever I'm working on to look like something that I would collect. Would that piece of art be in my room? Because I'm a collector of albums, you know, toys, so forth, comic books. And so if I do something, I want to make sure it looks good in my collection. So that's my goal. You know, whether how much work I put into it or, you know, how much work's involved or whatever the labor is, I want to make sure at the end of it, people look at it and they get the sense that this dude's having a good time, even though I may not have a good time. I want it to look like I'm having a good time.
Yeah. And
I mentioned this before. Patrick, are you familiar with Mondo Records or just the brand name Mondo? Mondo?
I've heard of them, yeah.
Well,
I'm trying to think.
Well, they do all this repackaging on soundtracks to films. And they get these artists and they do such fantastic artwork, and it's like a collector's item. You pay $50, $60 for these albums, but it has all this wonderful art. But this album looks like it belongs with Mondo because it has that sensibility of special packaging, collector's item. And again, unless you know what Mondo is, that don't make any sense. But for those people listen to this, they'll know what I'm talking about. But because Mondo does fantastic work. And when I looked at my album or our album compared to the Mondo stuff, it fits right in that family. So that made me feel really good because I think what they do is fantastic.
Wow, that's great. Yeah. Great compliment, Keith. That's a great
I just complimented myself wonderfully, didn't I? I know how to pat myself on the back.
Yeah, that's really cool. You know, I mean, you know, I've never seen, it's such a simple concept too, if you look at the front cover, but it's never been done. I've never seen it done at any album. It's incredible in the history of music. You never saw an album cover with that concept on the front cover, which is so amazing to me. It's so simple.
And Vincent, didn't you say no one's ever put this on an album cover either? This rock and roll sign?
Exactly. No one's ever put that sign on an album cover also.
Everybody does it, but we never seen it on an album cover. At least
Yeah,
I don't think.
you go on the internet. I was going on the internet, and I was thinking to myself, what would be like the back cover? And I saw all these little hands with this signal, and it was all over the place. I mean, it was like rock and roll art in the rock and roll art section. And I said, what the hell is this? And then I learned what it meant. And then I said, wait a minute, this is good. I brought it up to Keith Cook. And so he agreed. He said, that's cool. So, that made the whole thing happen. But, and of course, you made it happen on the cover. But it's a very important thing. That was never done on an album cover. Also, what are you working on now, Keith?
Can I pat myself on the back again?
You're on the back.
So I just got my box set in today, but
Ooh.
in Japan, there's this character called Ultraman. Now, he was big here in the 60s, but over there, he's still big like Godzilla or whatever these other.
Wow.
And so I've just created a whole box set of trading cards based on this character that's coming out.
Oh, my God.
I think they're out now, but I just got my box set today. So I'm looking forward to that.
Trading cards.
Being part of the Ultraman manga team. How about that? And I'm working on a second set of cards for them now that's due by the end of February, I think. Yeah, 2022.
Where can people buy the cards?
Right now, I think that you can buy them at especially card stores, comic shops. I'm sure in New York where you guys are, there's plenty of stores that feature, anime stores. You guys know anime and mangas, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Because
Ultraman is big.
So Ultraman.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people don't remember Ultraman, but as a kid, I used to watch that. I never knew what he was. He was weird looking, but he fought all these giant monsters. So I was all into that.
Exciting.
That's right.
Very exciting. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
think when I was little, Spencer got me like a little Ultraman toy. Spencer would sometimes get me little retro toys, and I feel like that was one of them.
Oh, really? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
He-Man, Justin.
Yeah.
He-Man.
But yeah, that was contemporaneous when I was young.
Yeah, He-Man was big. He-Man was big when you were young, Justin. Yeah.
But I do want to say that I've only worked on a couple of projects with Justin and Judith and Spencer, and both of them have been pieces that would be like my portfolio pieces. So they brought the kind of work that I enjoyed doing. And I really, always try to give it my best, and they become my portfolio pieces, no doubt.
Hey, thank you, Keith. That was very, very nice compliment, and we love your work too. You know that.
Well, we enjoy working with you because you're just so easy to get along with. And
well, they say likability goes a long way, so at least my wife tries to, encourage me to.
Totally. 100%.
Great job, Keith. Great job, man. I mean, I just, it was funny. You did it so fast in some way. And also, we didn't have any changes. That was the other thing, except for the hair, the spiked hair, I think was the only thing that came up. But other than that, you did the whole piece. So we know, because Judith and I have worked with very famous illustrators and album covers, and we changes here, you do changes there sometimes. But we like to let them go, like you. We like to let them do their thing. We don't want to restrict them. They have to do their thing. But there's maybe one or two touches. It always comes up. Not a big thing. But with you, it was like almost 99% of what you did was what we liked. You know what I'm saying?
And I have to say that's one of the things that I do like about certain clients is I like the managers or art directors you call the invisible art directors, meaning they don't step in unless they need to step in, and they let you do what they hired you to do. So that's a great, and not everybody can do that. Not everybody can be that type of art director. So that's great for certain creative souls.